Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Huddle Chat Sports Show. I'm your host, Dallas Clark, aka Indo is my Nindo. Now make sure you follow me on social media at Indo is my Nindo. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all of that. Of course, you're here on my YouTube channel, so you already know about that. Now, if you are new to the YouTube channel, and if you like my content, please be sure to hit that like button, because that like button really helps me out way more than you'll ever know. But also make sure you hit that subscriptions button and hit that notifications bell. Stay notified on when the episodes are coming out. Because if you don't know at this point, we got them coming out weekly, baby. We're coming out every week, every Thursday at this point. So stay tuned. I'm coming at you on your mobile devices, on your streaming devices, every Thursday here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show. Now, if you don't know about THC Sports, it is a cannabis-powered, yet sports-driven talk show. Around here, we focus on sports, yet marijuana will be infused throughout the podcast. It's not going to be a main topic. It's not even going to be something that we really talk about very often at all. But it's hard to deny that marijuana is present in sports as we know it, and it's going to be a part of sports in the future. You're seeing athletes from the past and athletes today come out and vouch for how cannabis has helped them immensely throughout their careers in the regular season, in the off season, pre-game, post-game, for the stress relief, for the therapy, and just for the straight-up medication portion of it. So if you don't consume, that's perfectly fine. But me, myself, I live out here in Colorado. I'm a medical marijuana patient. I work in the medical marijuana industry. So if I'm not selling weed or researching weed or growing marijuana, I'm consuming marijuana. I'm consuming cannabis. I'm enjoying that medication and therapy myself. So of course, here at the Huddle Chat Sports, while we're plowing new ground and tackling all those teams and storylines that just don't get talked about, sometimes seeming like whatsoever, on those weekly episodes of shows that you see like First Take, Undisputed, Get Up, NFL Live, the NBA Countdown, any of those teams and storylines that you just don't hear enough about that you should. If you're anything like me and you fucking hate hearing the same storylines and the same teams and the same players constantly over and over and over and over and over again, then you found a home here on the Huddle Chat Sports Show. Because like I said, we like to plow new ground. We like to tackle what everybody's not talking about. So before we get started on today's episode, of course, we got to hit the THC portion of THC Sports. So if you do consume, go ahead, smoke them if you got them. But before we do so, of course, we got to kick it to Eric for such a hateful intro. Go ahead, Eric. Let him know what's up.
Like as soon as you click on the video, it's and then marijuana title cards with smoke coming up. It's like
I may be covered in cat hair, but I still smell good. Baby, let me know, how do I look in my do-rag? Don't lie to me, let me rock you all night long. I'm trying to impress you, girl.
And you're getting high in the middle of the afternoon off some weed.
Now, this past few years in the NFL has shown us a surgence of quarterbacks who have a lot of talent coming in their rookie year and just absolutely take off and take over the league in their second year. Look back at 2018, you got Patrick Mahomes. Even just looking back at last year's MVP, Lamar Jackson. It's no different this year looking at Kyler Murray in his second year. He's completely taking over the league and he's starting to get MVP recognition. He's right now currently like fourth or fifth tied with Deshaun Watson for the MVP race right now at the current moment. And he's even starting to draw comparisons to last year's MVP and Lamar Jackson. Now, the question that I have that I've been posed to this week, that I've been thinking about all week, it took me a little bit of research, but honestly, I kind of knew the answer as soon as the question was asked to me. Is who is a better quarterback? Who has better potential? Who's going to be a better quarterback? Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson, last year's MVP? Of course, Lamar Jackson being the reigning MVP, took the Ravens last season to a 14-2 record. He threw for over 3,000 yards. He had 26 touchdowns, ran for over 1,200 yards, and added another 7 scores with his feet as well. So Lamar Jackson's getting it done, mostly with his feet though. Last season he did complete 60% of his passes, but I do believe if you go back and look at the tape, you're going to see a lot of the times his wide receivers, his tight ends, those people that are receiving the ball from him, they make those plays for him a lot of times. They go out and they make the plays that they need to help Lamar and the team move down the field. So you can't say Lamar is doing it all on his own. He's not necessarily putting it in the windows. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has proven himself to be the most explosive player in the NFL today. Just having Lamar Jackson on your team gives your team a chance. Lamar Jackson's hard to stop, and you're seeing NFL teams having an issue putting up a defense against Lamar Jackson, and even when you think you haven't figured out, he busts off runs out the backfield. He completes passes down the backfield. He does stuff that you're not expecting. And Lamar Jackson is a baller. He's a straight player. But the question here is, who's going to be better, Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson? And I think already right now, when you look at it, Kyler Murray has to be a better player than Lamar Jackson. I mean, like I said, you can't take anything away from Lamar Jackson, being the reigning MVP, completing 60% of his passes, and the numbers that he's put up. But even coming into the league, Lamar Jackson always drew the comparisons, and he always had the issues where people said that he can't throw the ball. He can't throw the ball well, with accuracy, with efficiency. And that's always going to be the issue with Lamar Jackson until he proves people wrong. When Kyler Murray is in the pocket, when he's a pure deep pocket passer, he can continue to deliver the ball with efficiency, with accuracy, with a quick release, and he does that at a far better level than Lamar Jackson. I mean, a lot of quarterbacks do, but Kyler Murray specifically. I mean, he's the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year last season. He rushed for over 3,000 yards, threw for over 3,000 yards, rushed for over 600 yards, 4 touchdowns on his feet, and 20 touchdowns with his arms. He did throw 12 interceptions, but that's, rookie mistakes coming into his own right. He also ranked 9th amongst quarterbacks last season in offensive yards as a rookie. So he's no slouch. He's getting it done as a passer, but you also can't deny the fact that Kyler Murray can get it done with his legs as well. Kyler Murray at the current moment is, honestly, I have to say, rushing better than Lamar Jackson this season right now. And you can even also argue that Kyler Murray coming into last season and even up to this point hasn't even really been unleashed in the running game like you would like to see. Lamar Jackson, when you look at the offensive plays of the Ravens, a lot of those plays are designed runs for Lamar Jackson. They're either RPOs or just straight QB draws. And Lamar Jackson is taking the ball in his own hands a lot of the time. And most times when a quarterback gets under duress or has an issue or something breaks down, he has that check down, whether it's a dump off to the running back out the backfield, whether it's a tight end streaking across the middle. Everybody has that safety valve. Well, the safety valve for the Ravens and Lamar Jackson is tuck that ball, run, and get out of there. So one of the main portions of that offense is Lamar Jackson running the ball. So if it goes to hopefully say that if you can stop Lamar Jackson from running the ball and force him to make plays with as a passer, you're going to be able to pick holes in Lamar Jackson and in his accuracy, in his efficiency as a passer. And then you look at what both players have to work with. I mean, as a rookie, Lamar Jackson came into a pretty established Baltimore Ravens team with a fairly established coaching staff, and they made the playoffs in his rookie season. Last season went 14-2, and it's not necessarily like they did it on Lamar Jackson's back. Of course, he was a big factor in that. But they had the playmakers around him. They had the offense around him. And they had a very decent defense as well. And the Ravens as a whole were put in the position to hit that record, not necessarily Lamar Jackson on his own. Yes, he did add that value to the team to become the most valuable player, but it's not like the Ravens went 14-2 on Lamar Jackson's back. And let's also not forget, they also do it at a time when their division is just really struggling. The Cleveland Browns were expected on paper to be a really good team, but last season extremely disappointed everybody and underperformed. This season's starting to get a lot better, but they're dealing with some injuries and dealing with some other things. So we're going to see what the Cleveland Browns can do. But last season with the Pittsburgh Steelers dealing with holdouts, walkouts, and their quarterback being named Duck, I mean, look at what the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing just this season. So just the fact that the two teams that were supposed to be competing with the Baltimore Ravens were bupkis last year. They were absolute putrid teams last season. Then you look at the fact and say, okay, well, everything on paper was built for the Ravens to have a great season last year. But then when you look at what Kyler Murray has come in to work with, he came into a team, let's not forget, the Arizona Cardinals were one of the worst teams in the league just a couple years back with Carson Palmer leading the team at the helm. So Kyler Murray took one of the worst teams in the NFL with a rookie coach as well. So both him and Cliff Kingsbury are trying to figure out the whole team and the whole system and everything. Coming straight from college, to both of them, they had a lot to work with, and look at where they are now, in the toughest division in football, and still getting things done, still with the winning record, and right now in the conversation for the playoffs. The only thing standing in their way is Russell Wilson and them Seattle Seahawks, and it's going to be a tough matchup for the Arizona Cardinals. But that's the only thing standing really in their way right now of being a good team, that they play in the toughest division in football. And they have straight competition every week. I mean, at least 6 of their games of this season are going to be some of the 6 harder games on any opponent's schedule. He can still take a normal drop back and make those lateral adjustments from left to right almost effortlessly and instinctually, and still deliver the ball and get himself into an open throwing lane and still deliver that ball. That's that baseball player in him. That's that, Russell Wilson has it. You see it in Russell Wilson. You see it in Pat Mahomes. That's just that instinctual baseball player about him, that he can still make those moves from side to side instinctually and get that open throwing lane and allow the offense to move more. And then you also take into the fact that the Arizona Cardinals have done what they need to do to continuously put more players around him. Last season acquiring Kenyon Drake, this offseason acquiring one of the best wide receivers in the league with DeAndre Hopkins. So they seem to be doing what they need to be doing to put the players around him and to ensure him success and make sure he's not going to be a bust in this league like so many young quarterbacks are. I mean, as much as I can't stand the guy, Colin Cowherd has even himself come out and claimed Kyler Murray as the best athlete in the world over LeBron James. I mean, I'm not necessarily agreeing with that argument, but you're even seeing analysts come out and talk about the athleticism, talk about the IQ of Kyler Murray. And then when you look at Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury and what they were able to do with that offense as the season progressed last season, they became a completely different team as the season progressed. They got better and better and better, and they continued to get better. I think last season, by the end of the year, they were one of the most dominant offenses in the NFL. They definitely just grew and they just kept going, and it doesn't seem like there's any sign of them stopping anytime soon. Like I said before, he's following the role of Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes and taking over the league in his second year. He's getting those MVP comparisons, and like I said, he's even starting to surprise people and say, man, are these Arizona Cardinals going to be a real competitor in the playoffs? Is Kyler Murray going to be a real competitor in the MVP race? He definitely will be. Of course, a couple things have to fall in line for him. Russell Wilson has been playing on another level. Josh Allen has been playing on another level. There's other quarterbacks and other players that have, deserve the award just as much as Kyler Murray does. But when we're talking about who can be better, I definitely think Kyler Murray is going to be a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson when everything is said and done. I actually am arguing that Kyler Murray is a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson right now. So if I was a GM and I was in the position and you asked me which one of these 2 quarterbacks would you take to lead your franchise, I'm taking Kyler Murray, small frame and all, with his efficiency, with his accuracy, with his athleticism, and with his ability to run the ball almost as well as Lamar Jackson, if not better than Lamar Jackson. Kyler Murray is a beast, man. It's time to start giving him that credit that he deserves. So going into this week, we've just surpassed the midway point of the season. So you're starting to see which teams are starting to appear as contenders, and the playoff picture is starting to become clearer and clearer as every week progresses. So the question, of course, on everybody's mind is, who are your favorites to represent each division in the Super Bowl? This week we're going to focus on the NFC. Next week will be on the AFC. This week, I believe, the NFC representation in the Super Bowl, the winners of the NFC Championship, is going to be the Seattle Seahawks. I think the Seattle Seahawks are absolutely the most dominant team in the NFC. Of course, the most important thing, the most obvious thing that you look at is Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson has been playing in the form of his life. He's been playing balls to the wall. This is the best Russell Wilson we've ever seen. I mean, even when you look back at last week, that primetime football game Russell Wilson had, I mean, he was making Patrick Mahomes-esque throws. And it seems as if Russell Wilson has hit the point where he said, you know what, I'm tired of all these young bucks coming in here. Let's not forget, this is the Russell Wilson show. And I think Russell Wilson is beginning to show us that he is going to be that man when Tom Brady is gone, when Aaron Rodgers is gone, and those people that we've been looking at as the elite quarterbacks, the great quarterbacks. Russell Wilson is going to be that man of this generation. While Patrick Mahomes and Lamar and Kyler still grow into their rights, and Josh Allen, they're still young, they're still necessarily unproven. We all know how great they can be, but they've still got to do a couple things. Russell Wilson has proven to us that he is going to be the man. He's the one that the quarterbacks of the next generation and of the coming generations are going to want to model their games after. I mean, Russell Wilson has been undoubtedly great, But we also need to focus on the key players around him and the weapons that are around him, especially that elite wide receiver core. Tyler Lockett has been superb this year, combining deep routes with his ability to catch the ball out of the slot position. Over 50 receptions this season, over 600 yards, and he's already put up 7 touchdowns. Tyler Lockett has been a standout wide receiver for years, but the difference between this campaign and previous campaigns is that Tyler Lockett may not even be the best wide receiver on the team anymore. DK Metcalf has been outstanding, and it's another one of those times where I'm sitting here looking at the Indianapolis Colts. Paris Campbell, he's great and all, but I really wanted us to draft DK Metcalf, and every time I see DK Metcalf do some crazy stuff on Sunday, it makes me a little bit sadder that the Indianapolis Colts didn't draft him. But I digress. He's still a great player, and he's going to be one of the most dominant. He's already drawing those comparisons to Calvin Johnson, to Megatron himself, and of course he's got a lot of time to go. He's got a lot of stuff to prove. But DK Metcalf, you cannot deny, is one of the most, if not the most dominant ball catchers in the league right now. He's put up 43 receptions already. He's put up over 800 yards. And he scored a touchdown in almost every single game. He's put up 8 touchdowns this season already. He's taken that next step from a talented player to an elite performer. And they honestly, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, they complement each other beautifully. Between Tyler Lockett's speed and agility and quickness and ability to take the top off the defense, and DK Metcalf's just size and ability to get up on those deep routes, they just complement each other so beautifully, and they have definitely become the best wide receiver tandem in the NFL. And then you also look at their tight end room. They don't necessarily have a standout in the tight end room, but between Greg Olsen and Will Dissly, and they have another tight end, I can't remember the name of him right now, but they have 3 solid tight ends at the current moment, and their tight ends are no slouches. It's fairly similar to when you look at the Indianapolis Colts tight end room, just how it's like they don't necessarily have a standout player, but each one of these tight ends we can plug into a formation. They can block, they can catch the ball really well, and they can do something when they get the ball, get an open field, and make big plays. Right now, that Seattle Seahawks offense is averaging 37 points per game. It's honestly become almost an expectation that when they come on the field that they're going to score. They've changed from a run-first to a pass-first offense, and it's really, you can even see the effect that it's had on Chris Carson's game. He's a good running back, but he's not one of those running backs. And Chris Carson has been able to make a bigger impact out of the backfield as a pass catcher and allowed DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett more room to work downfield as well. And it's opening up and making the offense flow just so much more, it's just so much better. Like I said, every time Seattle's offense takes the field, you're almost expecting them to score. That momentum, when combined with an elite quarterback who's playing in the form of his life, playing the best he ever has, that's almost unstoppable. But the defense is where the questions lie with the Seattle Seahawks. They're a bottom 5 team in points allowed per game. They're bottom 2 team in yards allowed per game, and they're dead last against the pass. So they definitely have raised some questions, and doubters will undoubtedly point to the Seattle Seahawks defense and the holes that they had. But it is key to point out that of their 9 games, 6 of those 9 games have been against elite offenses. They've played some tough offenses. And not only are they playing those elite offenses, they've also been dealing with some key injuries to some of their key players. So what they need some of those key players, like Jamal Adams, Bobby Wagner, they need them to stay healthy. And they need him to make big plays in big moments, just like they did in Week 2 against the Patriots. Bobby Wagner beats Cam Newton to the goal line, and the Seattle Seahawks essentially seal the win off of that defensive stop. What the Seattle Seahawks need is they need to continue to do what they need to get over the line. You're not thinking that this is going to be one of the NFL's most dominant defenses, but if the defense can do what they need to, like in Week 2, and make those key stops when they can, Russell Wilson is going to put them in that position to win the games. That offense is going to put them in the position to win the games. And then when you also look at the experience that the Seattle Seahawks have, they've got a head coach and a starting quarterback, an elite starting quarterback, with Super Bowl experience. Not just playoff experience, but Super Bowl winning and losing experience. And that's a very rare combo to have in the NFL. That's a very rare commodity to have in the NFL. And then you also look at the continual experience that they have, not just playoff, but Super Bowl experience with Bobby Wagner on the defensive side leading the ball. And then they even add some Super Bowl experience onto small places in the roster, like adding in players like Greg Olsen. And they have Dwayne Brown on the offensive line. They have key players that have experience where it matters. Like I said before, the doubters will undoubtedly point to the Seattle defense and say that's what's going to prevent them from getting on further into the playoffs and getting on to the Super Bowl. But when you look at that offense and how well it can score, they have an offense that can outscore anybody in the NFL, including the Kansas City Chiefs, and they've proven that to us. So if the defense can just continuously not lose the game for them and let their offense just work, they're going to be in an amazing position to win, because despite a tricky schedule and despite dealing with a lot of injuries and also playing in the toughest division in the NFL, the Seattle Seahawks are playoff bound. And when they get there, I guarantee you that's a team that nobody wants to see on their schedule. The year 2020 has been a crazy year of injuries. It's honestly been one of the wildest injuries that I personally, as a sports fan, can even recall. You've never seen this many injuries, and especially this many injuries to big names and key players in the league. I mean, you've seen the top tier of running backs virtually miss games and virtually be like not even noticed this season because of the different injuries that have been affected them. You look at Saquon Barkley, took that nasty injury early in the season. We're hoping him a quick recovery, and then he comes back next season, the dominant Saquon Barkley that we all know and love. Look at Christian McCaffrey, just took another injury after coming back, playing one game, takes another injury. Now his status is in doubt for the rest of the season. It's looking like he may be able to be ready for Week 11, but that's also a closely monitored situation. I mean, you look at Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott himself has not necessarily taken an injury, but when you look at the injuries to his offensive line, and you look at the injuries to his quarterback, they're playing with a four-string quarterback. I mean, Mitchell High School's quarterback could go out there right now and start for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, virtually every one of the top-tier running backs has been affected by injury this season, which has been very terrible, especially on the fantasy football perspective. But it's been really good for that second tier of running back, that next level, those running backs that aren't the top three, the big three, Zeke, CMC, and Saquon, the Alvin Kamaras of the world, the Dalvin Cooks, the Aaron Jones of the world. So it's honestly posing the question, and a lot of those running backs have been balling. They've been playing absolutely amazing. But it's been raising the question of those second-tier running backs that have been kind of living in the shadow of those top three, the big three, which one of those running backs is the best? And which one of those running backs honestly may even deserve more credit than we're giving them and should honestly be up in that conversation with the big three? And it's honestly pretty hard to deny, unless you've been living under a rock, you've seen Dalvin Cook balling in these last couple weeks. I mean, the last 2 weeks for Dalvin Cook has been something of like that you expect out of a 5-star prospect coming out of high school. 56 touches, almost 500 yards, 6 touchdowns. I mean, it all stemmed from that 226-yard, 4-touchdown performance against the Packers. And then he even outdid himself the next week against the Lions in back-to-back performances. And that's all coming off an injury and a bye week that he took, unfortunately. So Dalvin Cook was able to overcome that adversity. Fortunately for him, he took that injury about halfway through a game, missed the next week, and they had their bye, and he's come off the bye week extremely healthy and showing that he is extremely dominant, and he is the NFL's best rusher right now. Of course, like I said, the 3 elite running backs have been affected by injury, but Dalvin Cook has been getting none of the credit that he deserves. A big portion of it is Dalvin Cook's injuries. He has had an issue with injuries throughout his career. That's been the Achilles heel of Dalvin Cook, is that he just can't stay healthy at the current moment. And maybe it's just the way that he plays football. But when you look at what Dalvin Cook has been able to do this season, I mean, it's hard to deny the fact that he's elite. I mean, just those last 2 games, that 369 yards that he put up, that beats the record for the most rushing yards put up by any Vikings player in back-to-back games. Of course, you can figure out who that is. Adrian Peterson put up 366 yards in back-to-back games, and he did it twice. Dalvin Cook broke that record with his performance over the last 2 weeks. At the current moment, Dalvin Cook has a better yards per carry average than 9 different teams in the NFL. He's also the 3rd player ever to finish with 225 yards from scrimmage and 2 touchdowns in multiple games. He joins the likes of Jim Brown and Deuce McAllister for being the only 3 players in the NFL to ever do that. And that's despite just playing 6.5 games to this point. Dalvin Cook leads the NFL in scoring altogether. He's scored the most points of any player in the NFL, and the next 20 closest players that are behind him in scoring are kickers. I mean, breakaway speed, vision, agility, strength, you name it, what you want to see out of a running back, Dalvin Cook has it. I mean, like I pointed to earlier, just since coming off that bye week and coming off that injury, he has 15 gains of at least 10 or more yards. At the current moment, there are simply just not any weaknesses to Dalvin Cook's game. Even when defenses know what's coming, they're stacking 8 in the box and they still can't stop it. At the current moment, he's on pace for 26 total touchdowns, which has only been done 4 times in league history, and all 4 times that happened between 2000 and 2006. He's also on pace for more than 2,000 yards from scrimmage. Like I said, the only thing that has ever stopped Dalvin Cook, that has ever been able to stop Dalvin Cook, is injury. So if Dalvin Cook can stay healthy for even just 1 season, he's going to prove to everybody that he has been getting none of the attention that he deserves. He's going to prove to everybody that he is one of, if not the best running back in the NFL today. Alrighty, and then the last thing that I want to get into in today's episode, you already know what it is. It's Thursday night. What does that mean? Thursday night football. And I'm so excited for tonight. I cannot express it. This is the one national TV game that the Indianapolis Colts get. I did also just get alerted a couple days ago that next week's matchup against the Green Bay Packers, that's going to be a big one. That one just got flexed to the Fox 425 window. I believe that we just finally got America's game of the week. Go Colts. Let's go. I'm so excited, and I'm so glad that we're going to start getting some attention. Hopefully, we can do something with the spotlight, and we don't fall victim to the bright light syndrome. Now tonight, the Indianapolis Colts, we going to gallop right on into Music City, and we got a big game against the Tennessee Titans. One of our 4 biggest games of the season. We underperformed last week against the Baltimore Ravens. So we need to shake that off and come in on this shorter week and come in strong against the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are a lot of people's playoff favorites right now. A lot of people's favorites to win the division. And I can't deny it. They've been good this year. But this is the week that we prove that we are better than the Tennessee Titans. But how do we do that? What did the Indianapolis Colts need to do in order to see victory tonight in Music City on Thursday Night Football on the big stage? What we need to do as the Indianapolis Colts, of course, our defense just needs to continue to do what it's been doing. We finally got Darius Leonard back from injury. Bobby Okereke, Anthony Walker, our whole linebacker core is healthy. Our front 7 has been playing amazing. Some people would look at DeForest Buckner and look at his stats and say the impact that he's had has not been worth the price that he has. And they obviously have just been somebody that doesn't have the ability to stream an Indianapolis Colts game because we don't ever get on TV and we don't ever get talked about. But that's another argument for another day. Yes, DeForest Buckner has not been able to put up the stats that we would like out of him so far, but when you're watching the Indianapolis Colts games and you're watching the impact that he's having on offensive line and the terror that he's creating, it's opening up the other players. Right now, the Indianapolis Colts are able to play just rushing their front 4 with Justin Houston, DeForest Buckner, Danico Autry. We're able to rush those front 4 without blitzing any of our linebackers and allowing that talent of Darius Leonard, Okereke, Walker, Xavier Rhodes. We're allowing those back players to stay and do what they need to do to ensure success on the defensive side of the ball. We are the best defense in the league at the current moment. We have shut down 3 of the best rushing attacks in the NFL to a combined average of 3.5 yards per carry. And those teams are all averaging over 6 yards per carry at the current moment. So the question is not going to be the defense. Yes, Derrick Henry is dominant. Yes, Derrick Henry will most likely get his. Somebody that gets the ball 20 plus times a game anytime is going to get theirs. But what the Colts need to do is we just need to stand pack on defense. We need to do what we've been doing. We need to stay that elite defense, that number 1 defense, and there will be no issues. But what we really need to do is going to be keyed in on the offensive side of the ball. The biggest problem that we have right now is that we are not running the ball. What was the motto last season? Let me hear it. If you're a Colts fan, let me hear it. That's right, everybody. Run the damn ball. And I don't know why the Indianapolis Colts are not doing that. We have Jonathan Taylor, the rookie. Jordan Wilkins and Nyheim Hines have proven that we can count on them as well. So I don't know why we're not taking that three-headed beast and running it down people's throats. But we need to get back into that run the damn ball mindset with the best offensive line in the NFL, with a great rushing attack. We just need to keep running the ball down people's throats. But another issue that we're having at the current moment is we are 1-2 against teams with a winning record. Against the 3 teams that we've had that were decent teams, we're 1-2 against them. The biggest problem is that Phillip Rivers, his statistics that he's been putting up against those teams, the QBR that he's had against those teams, the mistakes that Phillip has been making against those teams have been detrimental. I'm not one of those Colts fans that's given up on Phillip Rivers, because as unhappy as I was when Phillip Rivers got signed, he's still our quarterback. He still gives us a decent chance to win games. But he just needs to stop making mistakes, and he needs to play like the Phillip Rivers that we saw against the Lions. He needs to play like the Phillip Rivers that we've seen before that just doesn't put us in the position to lose games. Last week, we lost off of 2 turnovers, one of them being Phillip Rivers' fault. And we just couldn't come down the field at the end of the game and score. We put ourselves in bad positions, even though we had an amazing first half. But the Indianapolis Colts just need to get a little bit better with their play calling on the running the damn ball. And Phillip Rivers needs to play his best football, especially throughout the rest of this month of November, because these are our 3 biggest contests, with the Titans twice and the Packers again next week. We have to have Phillip Rivers not making mistakes. We need to have Phillip Rivers completing his passes with accuracy, with efficiency, like he can, and allowing the Indianapolis Colts team to win us the football game. If the Indianapolis Colts can just do those few small things, like I said, the defense just needs to continue what they've been doing. We're allowing 21 yards per rush per quarter at the current moment right now. So we're allowing 21 rushing yards per quarter at the moment. That's a dominant defense. Like I said, we've stopped some of the most elite rushing defenses in the league at the current moment, and we've been able to hold them. We've been able to contain them. And we should be able to do that again against Derrick Henry and against the Tennessee Titans. We should be able to shut down the likes of A.J. Brown and Jonnu Smith. Our defense just needs to do what it needs, what it's been doing, and we'll be fine. But if Phillip Rivers can just play competent football and we can run the damn ball like we know we can, the Indianapolis Colts should have no issue seeing victory tonight against the Tennessee Titans. Now that's going to be it for me today on the Huddle Chat Sports Show. I'd really like to thank y'all so much for tuning in again to yet another episode of TAC Sports. Like I said, don't forget today we focused on the NFC. We focused on the NFC a lot. Besides the little dabble that we did for the Indianapolis Colts and them, we did a lot of focus on the NFC today. And we did a lot of focus on the NFC, especially with the Super Bowl predictions. So make sure you stay tuned next Thursday for the AFC side of things. We're going to be looking at some of the most dominant teams in the AFC. We're going to be looking at who my favorite team is in the AFC to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl this coming year. I'd like to thank you guys again, of course, like as always, so much for the love and the support and for tuning in to this week's episode of the Huddle Chat Sports Show. If you haven't liked the content, if you haven't subscribed yet and you watched this whole video, please don't forget to do that, unless you're just trying to hurt my feelings at this point, and I get it. But again, like I said, thank y'all so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Huddle Chat Sports Show. I got to get out of here so we can go ahead and get on the pregame and see what's going on with the Indianapolis Colts tonight and see what's going on with the rest of the matchups this weekend. Boy, am I excited. We are going to be getting back into talking about basketball here in the next couple weeks as well, with the NBA starting on December 22nd. So make sure you hit that notifications bell, stay notified, follow me on social media at Indo is my Nindo, and make sure y'all stay high, stay blazing, but most importantly, stay safe out there, y'all. Much love. I'm out of here. Peace out.